because it goes with the story of, honey, why do you cut the ends off the ham? Well, I don't know, my mother did. Well, let's call your mother. Hey, Mom, why do you cut the ends off your ham? I don't know, let me call my mother. Hey, Mom, why'd you cut the end off your ham? Because my pan was too small. Get a bigger pan already. Click. And we kind of like follow a sheep, and then we take traditions, and we take family recipes, and sometimes we honor it without questioning it. You're right.
That's how you do it.
And sometimes it had meaning and had value, but sometimes you look for value and meaning in things that don't need to be, and sometimes you're just following suit. I cook the way my mother cooked. You don't get a recipe. You just grab stuff, throw it in the pan, and it turns out good. Not all the time, but most of the time it does. I mean, I remember my mother's recipes only based on the fact I watched her. And I remember, like, when we make our meatball slop, it's not the quantity, it's the smell. And it's funny because I can't smell, but it's the smell.
You cook them.
And it's the, as long as you smell the ketchup and the crackers and the meat, and in the textures where the eggs is, guess what? Your meatballs will turn out every time. And that's the funny part. So it's an innate thing to some degree. But in this case, what would I tell her? I'm kind of rambling, but she needed to hear this. If I ever tell you to heal something, cord switching would be definitely something I would tell you to do. Meridian tapping, yeah, you could, but I don't know if you're familiar with it. Are you familiar with, like, emotional freedom technique, meridian tapping? Because if you are, I can give you something for that too, or just tell you where to go. In a good place. And then there's the hope therapy, but you're not ready for that yet. She could be, but she's got to get used to us. I would definitely do some research on disdainfulness, which means the research is just find out what the definition of the word. There's your definition, your best friend's definition, then there's group conscious definition, and then you look in the dictionary and the thesaurus, and you'd be amazed at how all of a sudden you can take your old definitions and blow them apart, creating something new. But if there's an intensity with it, that, oh yeah, I know how angry and disdained and yeah, if there's an intensity and there's a color with it, then that means you're losing life force. And literally put it on the scale from 0 to 10, give it a color, and go do meridian tapping, or in this case, the be hope therapy. Well, then you would probably hold R2D, and what would happen is that you would hold the right wrist with your second position, which is with your thumb, and you push deep, and then you put your hand on your forehead. There's a whole instruction video on that too. And what happens is you think about it. You're already doing the pattern, and sometimes I call it hell, but you're already doing it, and you don't want to do that anymore. You're going to preserve all the positive learnings, and you're going to focus on it until it fizzles out. And the main thing about hope therapy is we have meridians in our body and their energy pathways, and they deliver messages. Then we have a brain that in the hypothalamus, it creates chemical peptides for everything you think. But it's also the way you sit, the physiology, it's also the environment, the people that are in it, and whatever they're thinking. And if you don't have the healthy boundaries or the filters, then you don't know where you begin and they end, and you will make chemical peptides. Chemical peptides is to help you feel what you're being and thinking and where you're at. It helps you reanimate yourself every given second in this illusion. Because of that, the fear brain, the emotion part of the brain, has collected many files that has been so overwhelmed it's unable to, it doesn't have a tool to process it, so it has to store it. And so it stores it in the limbic brain, and then it encodes it all through the system. And we have to upgrade that limbic brain by actually finishing out these files, helping you process the things where you couldn't process at the time. And let's just explain the process. Okay, so you're a little kid, you're happy as can be, and Daddy yells at you. And you're thrown off center because you're like, what just happened? I can't even process this. And one of the live examples for you was when your sister would treat you like crap and you just couldn't process this. So you ran to your mom, Mom, help me. I don't know what to do. And she tells you what?
Quit being a tattletale. Take it outside, work it out amongst yourselves, figure it out.
And she's sitting there going,
and I'm like, great, you just fed the bully. Okay, great, that's awesome. Thank you for not helping whatsoever.
Because you couldn't process in that fashion, you learned to cope by giving yourself self-talk, probably denigrating yourself. And maybe you tried to fight back, but she won. So then you created another strategy. So you learned to just store the files in that limbic part of your brain.
Right, and just leave my sister alone and don't even bother. Don't poke the bear.
And then if she's not in your view as you chronologically age, you're going to bring that same projection because your subconscious mind's number one job is to preserve the body. And when it simply does this, your body, your subconscious mind scans and looks for energy loss, and then it comes up and tells you. And if you're not listening, then it can be a pain. If you're not listening to the physical pain, then it can project it out to people. But one way or the other, you're going to see a mirror somewhere. Okay? And when you did not know how to process that point, you stored it in the limbic brain, and then you created chemical peptides, and so every time there's a trigger, because we are sensory beings, we have eyes, ears, nose, and the mouth, so that you have the taste, the smell, and you can feel, and then there's the self-talk. And we don't realize that, and this is the beauty of it all, because I do eye processing and stuff, is that every time any incident, any given second, you're taking 2 pictures of your eyes, 2 pictures with your ears, 2 pictures with your nostrils, 2 pictures in and out of your feelings, and then there's all the self-talk, and then we get like 4 billion bits of information, and we only catch 150. And the rest of it gets stored. But if you have, so let's say Jen was going to attack me, and what would happen is that, let's say she's just off to the side, to the right, if she's going to attack me and it threw me off my center, then I'm going to take a picture, and anytime I look in that direction, just looking in that direction, a part of me may jump just because I had warned myself, because I have a story that has an intensity and an emotion and a thought process, and I hadn't healed it. So I can even affect my eyesight and my range, hearing things. Like my husband was talking to me, and because I was trained to hear a tone to be afraid of, he can use that tone, and he won't be even saying that.
It's not his intention whatsoever.
No, but all I can hear is my filter, and I've been trained to hear the negative and what to do about it, that it actually causes us to not have a wonderful relationship. So I learned to heal and move forward. Oh, we'll probably have to do a commercial. So what's going on with the scoop here?
Okay, so the question with this person again, I saw a guy today I'm interested in and wondering if you guys saw anything about that. Okay.
All right, what we need you to do is focus on the guy. That way we can do a direct line of knowing which directional source we have to go through. And how did she put the question? Today, in interest in wondering if you guys saw, I'm wondering if we saw anything about that. Meaning, is there potential or the intention of having a relationship? Okay, so as I look at it, yes, she's excited that there could be, but you got to remember, you got a heart wall there. You have a lot of playfulness that you can have with it. You could potentially learn to build. Oh, my head's spinning now. Oh, that's right, she spins out. Right? Oh, you'll have to wait. Yeah, everything will be good until all of a sudden he hits that trigger button, and all of a sudden, whee! It'll be spun out, because right now I feel like my equilibrium's a little off. I have to know something about this because it's not adjusting. So when you have past relationships, they're saying, how do they usually start out? Don't see the contempt? Now, we have to really look at this, disdainfulness, and we should be looking and seeing the definition.
From the family line that we were talking about earlier.
Oh, duh. That's right.
Just a review so everybody's back on board.
Thank you. Yeah, sometimes you have to get me. Getting to know each other again is going to be different. You can actually say, okay, am I attracting this man in because of the old ways, or can I attract him in differently? And a lot of times you just taking action is good, but you will end up falling into a pattern which will then just repeat itself, because how you do anything is how you do everything, because it's a strategy that's within you.
Because it worked once.
Because it worked once. Now, I'm going to look a little bit more. Again, on a scale from 0 to 10, should she go and talk to him? 7. On a scale from 0 to 10, should she wait until he talks to her? Oh, she likes that better as far as on a soul level. But it doesn't mean it can be different than how you consciously act. And is she nervous? Yeah, there's always that potential, but what they're really saying is, let's say I gotta find out what deck we gotta have. Just be me. Going back to defining what disdainfulness, because you're going to keep having life repeat itself until you get the story. This goes again to when I grew up, the type of man that came in my world, again, had the soul contract, culture, everything. And I would attract men. I got married, got divorced, I said, okay, I noticed that when there could be two great people come together and it's not good. What am I doing? And they says, well, you're attracting. What am I attracting? All right, I'm ready to date. And God lined up 12 people. Not all at once. But as I learned to go through the dating process, each one of them are good, but then all of a sudden there were traits and things that, like, I kept choosing a man that didn't care if a woman had a voice. Then,
ooh, that caused me to spin out.
Then there was, okay,
and I think that's because I tapped into the spinning out earlier when you were spinning out. I think that's what it. I think that's part of like some of the disdainfulness.
One of the things that a woman has to do, which I did as a kid, was you have to watch your P's and Q's. And so I just really wanted my mother's love, but it translated into relationships as I was growing. And what that meant is this, like, for instance, as soon as I hear Scott say, just for an example, women talk on the phone too much. Oh my God, yeah, they certainly do. And so when they have a conversation about women,
because that's a culture thing, and then the guys can commiserate. Oh yeah, my ball and chain talks on the phone too much too.
Okay, and what happens? But what happens is that it was inside of me is that a denigration process started. Then I had correction process, and then all of a sudden, I would end up stop using the phone without even knowing it. And it was. My girlfriend went up, she goes, you don't talk on the phone anymore. And when Spirit said, oh, good, let's look at this, and showed me, I thought, oh my gosh. It had nothing to do with him. He just is the continued story of when I was a kid. But it's also a continued story through the soul's line of whether it's a past life or through culture, heritage, or any of this stuff. But the illusion is based on codes, and that is what we read. That's why we look on the quantum law of attraction. We can see all the codes of how they're read. What's this important to her is to simply understand that what your attracting factor is. What is in you that it has to keep repeating the story until you get it? How many times do I have to get this until I'm done? We have learned sometimes to chronically outgrow it, but we don't, because it's sometimes really huge into our foundation. But, go ahead.
So after I made the choice to leave the marriage and file for the process, go through the process of divorce. What I did was I took an inventory of all the past relationships that I had been in. I went through and just made a list, all these different people. What was the common factor? What was the common factor? What was the common factor on them? What was the common factor on me? And I took inventory, and then that's when I decided, hey, you know what? I'm done with this. I'm done with this. What do I really want?
Right.
This is what I want to create, and this is the bottom line.
Yeah, because intention is there, but you learn to heal. The biggest thing is to learn to heal, to create closure to things, because you didn't want to keep bringing up the continued story of a person. And like I said, my husband, when he did that, he could have said it and not bothered me, but because he was a continued story and I was supposed to lose power on it, I can't blame him. I can't blame anybody. It is a part of a process. So I had to go all the way back, and when I did, I was like, oh, isn't that amazing? So I had to heal that anger, the contempt I had for how a woman is supposed to be treated and how a woman is supposed to be corrected. And then it boiled down to how I was a little kid and all I wanted is love. And if I cut this out, you love me. I used to stand back and watch how my sister would get my mom mad. Okay, don't write my little manual for living. Don't act like that. And then when my sister would do something, my mother's happy. Oh, it's okay to do that. And literally, I created my own manual for living. We all do. And then there's the group conscious manual that comes into play. So there's a lot of things that come in.
And it's played out through sitcoms and other things that people just, that's what it's supposed to be like. And then we laugh at it and think it's funny. And it's just tit for tat and just really just finding ways to be mean. And people probably wouldn't say, well, my intention is to be mean in the relationship. That's not what the intention is.
Oh, God, no.
Because it's underlying. It's just that all that stuff that lays
keeping your power
below the surface. It's like we're all a bunch of icebergs or volcanoes walking around, and there's all this crap below the surface that we don't know what to do with, but we're only showing this much, and then this is how we're interacting.